It was a quiet afternoon in my Portland apartment near the Willamette River when my phone rang with news that shattered me. Allison Carter, clutched the phone as a medical lab claimed I had a severe illness, cancer, they said. My hands trembled as I called my older sister, Bethany Carter. She arrived within minutes, tears streaming as she wrapped me in her arms. "I'll take care of you," she sobbed, voice breaking. "Give me your medical records, all of them." Stunned, I trusted her and handed over every document, believing she'd help me navigate this nightmare. A week later, my doctor, Patricia Hayes, called with shocking news. "Allison, you're perfectly healthy," she said. I froze. Healthy. She explained that the test results had come from a laboratory that shut down 5 years ago. My stomach twisted. Why would those papers claim I was sick? Bethany's tearful promise echoed in my head. But something felt off. Had she known I pictured the records I'd given her now in her possession, and a chill spread through me. Why would my sister lie about something so devastating? I'm still piecing it together. But I need to ask, has someone close to you ever betrayed your trust? Maybe a relative who twisted your pain for their own gain. Share your story in the comments. Where are you watching from? Let's talk about the moments that change everything. A few days later, Bethany arrived at my apartment with a notebook and a determined expression. She dropped onto my couch, flipping through pages filled with messy notes. "I'm writing a book," she declared, eyes bright. "It's about my journey caring for you through your illness. It'll inspire people." I just stared, still reeling from Dr. Hayes' call confirming I was perfectly healthy and that the test results came from a lab closed years ago. A book. I was still processing the truth while she was already planning a bestseller. Then she pulled out her phone, showing me a social media post about her selfless role as my caretaker. The caption detailed my supposed battle hospital visits, sleepless nights, her unwavering devotion. None of it had happened. She even mentioned an appointment that never existed. "This isn't right," I said, pointing to the screen. She brushed me off. "It's for effect, Allison. People love a good story." Within hours, her post gained hundreds of likes full of praise and sympathy. Soon, she launched an online fundraiser for my medical expenses. Friends, neighbors, and strangers donated, calling her a hero. I had once handed her the fake records, believing she meant well, but now I wasn't so sure. That weekend, my parents, Richard and Diane Carter, invited us to dinner at their home in Portland's suburbs. My father greeted Bethany with a proud smile. "You're doing so much for your sister," he said. My mother nodded, setting the table for a dinner to honor Bethany's sacrifice. I sat silently while they toasted her. "To Bethany for stepping up," Richard said. Diane added, "We're so proud." My chest tightened. No one asked how I was doing. Bethany glowed under their praise, bragging about her growing social media following. "The fundraiser's at $5,000, she said with a grin. I nearly choked. 5,000, for what she mentioned, a specialist I'd never heard of. "Who's that?" I asked. She laughed it off. "Just someone I read about." My parents didn't notice, too caught up in her story. That night I couldn't sleep. I opened my laptop and scrolled through her posts. Commenters called her an angel, but every detail was wrong. She described hospital stays that never happened and timelines that didn't match reality. I saved screenshots of every post, every lie. Later, I met my parents for coffee near their house and tried to bring up what Dr. Hayes had told me. But my mother cut in. "Bethany's taking care of everything, Allison." My father nodded. "You're lucky to have her." I left, hands trembling, and called my friend Leslie Monroe. She listened as I vented. "Something's off," Leslie said. "You should dig deeper." Bethany's posts kept escalating, each more dramatic than the last. She shared a picture holding my records captioned, "Fighting for my sister." The fundraiser climbed to $15,000. I stared at that number, my heart pounding. She wasn't fighting for me. She was performing for an audience. I opened a folder labeled Evidence. It was time to find out what she was really doing. One morning, I met Leslie at an indie coffee shop in Portland's Pearl District. She stirred her latte eyes sharp. "You need to check those test results," she said. Bethany's story doesn't add up. I nodded, my mind racing. The posts, the fundraiser, the book, they all depended on my supposed illness. But if I was healthy, what was she doing? Leslie leaned in. "Start with the lab." I called Patricia. "Allison, that lab hasn't existed for 5 years," she said firmly. "I'll send you their closure notice and archived records." My heart dropped. A closed lab meant someone had fabricated the results. I thanked her and hung up, hands trembling. Leslie watched me quietly. "What now?" she asked. I exhaled slowly. "I need to find out why Bethany wanted those files." Back at my desk, I opened the documents Patricia had emailed. The closure notice confirmed the lab was shut down for fraud in 2020. Had Bethany used their old letterhead, I saved the files, my determination solidifying. She hadn't just exaggerated, she had lied, and I needed proof. Then Richard and Diane announced plans for a public fundraiser at their home in Portland's outer suburbs. Richard called it a celebration of Bethany's strength. Diane texted me an invitation, though it felt more like an obligation. I drove there with a knot in my stomach, hoping to blend into the crowd. The backyard buzzed with chatter, neighbors, friends, and local business owners holding drinks, many wearing buttons with Bethany's face. A banner read, "Support for Allison." Led by Bethany. My name, her spotlight. Bethany stood on a small stage, microphone in hand. "I'm doing this for my sister," she said, gesturing toward me. I shrank back, feeling like a prop. She spoke of doctor visits that never happened, her tireless fight to save me. Richard clapped enthusiastically while Diane handed out flyers praising Bethany's selfless heart. I stood frozen, face burning. No one mentioned my actual health or the truth I was uncovering. I discreetly recorded her speech on my phone, capturing every lie. Then Bethany lifted my medical records and waved them for the crowd. "These show her struggle," she declared. They were fake, and she knew it. I glanced at my parents, hoping they'd notice, but they only smiled proudly. The fundraiser total climbed past $15,000. I overheard a neighbor whisper Bethany's an inspiration. I wanted to scream. That night back home, I opened Bethany's social media. Her latest post showed a photo from the event captioned, "Together we're unstoppable." She even claimed I'd met a specialist in Seattle, a city I hadn't visited in years. I took screenshots, adding them to my evidence folder. Leslie texted me, urging check the fundraiser's financial records. Nonprofits keep public filings. I researched the lab's history online. Articles detailed its shutdown, corruption, forged results, falsified data. Bethany could have reused their materials. I emailed Patricia again for additional documentation. She promised to send more by morning. That evening, Leslie called. "You're doing the right thing," she said. "But be careful. The fundraiser, the book, the lies, they were all unraveling, but I needed more." I stared at my evidence folder. Bethany thought she was untouchable, but I was just getting started. The next week, I sat in my apartment scrolling through Bethany's social media posts. Each one twisted my stomach, photos of her smiling at fundraisers, captions about saving my sister, all lies. I needed proof she was more than a storyteller. I invited her over for coffee, my phone's recorder app ready. She arrived, confidence radiating, and bragged about her upcoming book. "It's going to be huge," she said, sipping her latte. "People love a hero." I kept my tone neutral. "How's the fundraiser going?" I asked casually. She shrugged, then slipped. "It's at 15,000 now, but I had to use 8,000 for personal expenses, research travel, you know." My heart pounded. Personal expenses, I hit record, capturing every word. I replayed the clip, her voice clear and damning. $8,000 gone, not a cent toward any medical cause. I emailed the 3 charities she'd listed in her posts. One replied within hours. "We have no record of donations from Bethany Carter." Another confirmed the same. The third never responded, but the pattern was clear. She hadn't given the money to anyone but herself. I saved the emails, hands trembling with anger. How could she steal from people who thought they were helping me? I dug deeper. Bethany's posts were a goldmine of contradictions. One claimed I'd had a biopsy I never underwent. Another mentioned a treatment center in California I'd never visited. I screenshotted each lie, organizing them in my evidence folder alongside the recording and charity emails. I contacted Patricia again for additional proof of the lab's fraud. She sent a 2020 lawsuit filing against the lab for forging results. I needed to tie it directly to Bethany. This was bigger than I could handle alone. Leslie had mentioned a lawyer, so I scheduled a meeting with Thomas Grant, a Portland attorney specializing in financial fraud. His downtown office gleamed with glass and polished wood. I laid out the recording charity emails and Patricia's documents. Thomas, sharp-eyed and methodical, studied everything. "This is serious," he said, tapping his pen. "Misusing fundraiser money can lead to criminal charges, but you'll need airtight evidence, bank records, receipts, proof she fabricated those results." I nodded, jaw tight. "Can we build a case?" I asked. He leaned back. "If you keep collecting evidence quietly, yes. But don't alert her." His tone was steady, deliberate. It grounded me. That night, I checked Bethany's emails through our old shared family account, which she'd forgotten to log out of. One thread showed an order for urgent medical letterhead from the same fake lab dated a month before she handed me the results. My pulse quickened. She'd planned everything. I downloaded the emails and the receipt, paid with her own card. Every piece was falling into place. I called Leslie that night. "She's been lying from the start," I said. Leslie didn't hesitate. "Keep pushing, Allison. You're closer than she thinks." I wanted to confront Bethany, but Thomas's warning echoed, "Stay discreet." I couldn't risk losing the upper hand. I traced more transactions in the shared account: $5,000 labeled as book research, another for a new laptop, both charged to the fundraiser's card. I saved them all. My evidence folder was thick now: screenshots, emails, receipts, Patricia's report, the recording. I cross-checked every file, making sure nothing was missing. Bethany thought she was untouchable, but I was closing in fast. I met with Thomas again, handing over the new documents. He reviewed them, expression grave. "This strengthens your case," he said. "If we can access the fundraiser's bank records, we can prove misappropriation." I wasn't ready to involve an accountant yet. I needed to keep this contained. My anger burned, but I funneled it into precision, double-checking every detail. Bethany's lies were collapsing, and this time, she wouldn't escape the truth. A month later, Bethany invited me to a meeting at a downtown Portland bookstore. I hesitated but agreed, my evidence folder stuffed with screenshots, emails, and recordings burning in my mind. Her lies about my supposed illness had cost thousands, and I needed to see how far she'd go. The bookstore, warm with wooden shelves and the scent of coffee, buzzed as we arrived. Bethany introduced me to a literary agent, Martin Cole, a polished man in a sharp blazer. "Allison Martin's thrilled about the book," she said with a wide smile. I forced a nod, sensing her deception was escalating. Martin led us to a private room and outlined the proposed deal. "Bethany's story of caring for you through your illness is gold," he said, flipping through the contract. "It's raw, emotional. Readers will love it." I clenched my jaw. The illness was a lie built on fake test results. Bethany nodded, describing my battle with details I had never lived: hospital stays, sleepless nights, her selfless care. Then I saw a folder labeled with my name, filled with my personal emails, including exchanges with Patricia. My heart pounded. "Where did you get those?" I demanded. Bethany shrugged. "You shared the password ages ago. It's great material." She'd stolen my emails, violating my privacy to enrich her story. Martin suggested a photo shoot to promote the book. "We need both of you, sisterly bond cells," he said. I agreed, though. Every instinct screamed to walk away. The studio nearby was bright with flashing lights and a photographer barking orders. Bethany posed with an arm around me, her face somber. "This is for Allison's fight," she told the crew, spinning stories of my darkest moments that never happened. I felt exposed. My life twisted into her fiction. I pretended to check my phone but recorded her words instead. She didn't notice, too caught up in playing the devoted sister. Back at the bookstore, Martin and Bethany discussed marketing plans. "We need more personal content," she said, eyes glinting. "Allison's journals, maybe her texts, something raw." My blood boiled. She was digging deeper into my life. I kept recording, capturing every word as she pushed for my private documents. Martin nodded. "That'll make it authentic," he said. Authentic? It was all fabricated. I stayed silent, anger simmering, knowing every line was evidence. When the meeting ended, I left quickly, the recording secured. I called Leslie. "Bethany's using my emails," I said, voice trembling. Leslie urged me to dig into Martin's background. "See if he's legit," she said. I searched online and found his agency was small but reputable, specializing in emotional memoirs. The publisher, based in Seattle, had several bestsellers but a reputation for rushing projects. Leslie later texted me a forum link questioning Martin's ethics in handling client data. I added it to my evidence folder, my resolve solidifying. In our shared email account, I discovered messages to journalist Edward Pierce. Bethany had pitched a story about her sacrifice for my illness, painting herself as a hero. Edward, a local reporter known for human interest pieces, seemed eager, asking for exclusive details. My chest tightened. She was turning my name into a spectacle, profiting off lies. I saved the entire thread, hands shaking with fury. How could she exploit me, knowing the truth? I called Leslie again, venting my frustration. "She's selling my life to the press," I said. Leslie replied, "You've got enough to nail her, keep it tight." Her words steadied me. I wanted to confront Bethany, to demand why she'd betrayed me, but Thomas had warned me to stay discreet. I channeled my anger into action, reviewing all my evidence: the bookstore recording, stolen emails, publisher notes, and Edward's correspondence. I emailed Patricia for updates about the fake lab. She sent a 2020 regulatory notice exposing its fraud. It wasn't tied directly to Bethany, but it strengthened my case. I met Leslie for coffee to update her on Edward. She suggested tracking his published work. I found nothing yet, but his interest meant time was running out. My emotions churned: anger at Bethany's betrayal, hurt from her exploitation, and determination to end her deceit. I wasn't powerless anymore. With Leslie and Thomas behind me, I was ready to bring her down. All I needed was the right moment. On a rainy afternoon, I walked into a small downtown office to meet the publisher's fact-checker, Deborah Walsh. I had gathered everything: recordings from meetings, screenshots of social media posts, medical files, from Patricia receipts, proving fundraiser misuse, and emails exposing the fake lab. Deborah, a woman in her 50s with sharp glasses, examined the binder I handed her. "This is thorough," she said, flipping through pages. "The lab closure checks out, and these charity replies confirm no donations." I nodded, keeping my pulse steady. Bethany built her book on lies about my illness. Deborah's expression hardened. "We can't publish fraud. I'll escalate this to legal." She called the publisher's team while I waited, her voice crisp as she outlined the discrepancies. "The agent Martin will be notified. The contract is void." Relief washed over me, but I knew the fight wasn't finished. Deborah returned the binder. "You did the right thing coming forward." I thanked her and left rain soaking my coat as I drove to my parents' house in the suburbs. Bethany had texted demanding a family meeting. I knew what awaited me. The living room felt tense when I arrived. Bethany paced, face flushed, while Richard sat stiffly with his arms crossed. Diane hovered near the kitchen, worry etched in her eyes. "You ruined everything," Bethany snapped the moment I walked in. "The publisher canceled the deal because of your so-called evidence. How could you destroy my dream?" I stayed calm, placing the binder on the table. "Your dream was built on stealing from people who thought they were helping me." She gave a bitter laugh. "You're jealous. Always have been." Richard interjected. Alice and Bethany supported you. This is just spite. Diane stepped closer, her tone gentler. Wait, Richard. Let her explain. I opened the binder showing the charity emails. No money went anywhere, $8,000 labeled as her expenses. Bethany's eyes widened. That's not... I cut her off and played the coffee shop recording her voice admitting the misuse. Richard's face paled, though he shook his head. She meant well. It just went too far. Diane covered her mouth. I ignored you, Allison. I'm sorry. I enabled this. The argument exploded. Bethany screamed about her sacrifice, but I played the bookstore recording her demands for my private documents echoing through the room. You stole my emails, I said quietly. She lunged for the phone, but Richard grabbed her arm. Enough, he barked, still defending her. Allison's overreacting. Diane turned to me, tears spilling down her cheeks. I was wrong to always take Bethany's side. I failed you. The room splintered, Bethany shouting accusations, Richard insisting on family unity, Diane begging for forgiveness. I stood firm. Return the $15,000, Bethany, every cent. She glared, but the charities had already contacted her demanding audits. That evening, Edward's article went live, a correction exposing the deception. What began as a story of sisterly devotion was built on fabrication, he wrote, detailing the fake lab and misused funds. Comments flooded Bethany's page's supporters demanding refunds and calling her a fraud. One by one, her posts vanished as she deleted her accounts. I watched from my apartment, the backlash swift and brutal. Charities filed reports confirming no donations had ever been received. Bethany's phone buzzed nonstop with angry messages from donors. At home, Richard called, his voice strained. This is tearing us apart. Please forgive her. I refused. She made her choice. Diane came alone the next day, apologizing again. I see it now, her patterns, my denial. We talked for hours, our first honest conversation in months. Bethany sent threats, then pleas, but I blocked her. The money began returning, $15,000 wired back to donors, her savings drained. She packed her bags, muttering about starting over somewhere else. Richard blamed me, his loyalty unshaken. The family broke apart, raw, permanent, and beyond repair. Thomas reviewed the refunds. She's complying, but expect possible lawsuits from donors, he warned. I nodded, relief and sorrow tangled inside me. The truth had cost everything, but at least it was mine again. 6 months after Bethany's book deal collapsed, I stood in a Portland community center addressing a small audience. The room was warm, filled with attentive faces, some curious, others quietly nodding as I spoke. Bethany had returned the $15,000 to donors, her savings drained after the charity audits. She left Portland soon after, renting a small place in a coastal town far from scrutiny. Her once busy social media pages had turned into empty archives, her name shadowed by accusations of fraud. She tried reaching out, claiming she'd changed, but I blocked her. Trust once fractured doesn't mend easily. Richard kept calling, pleading for forgiveness. She made a mistake, Allison. Family sticks together. I stayed firm. Family doesn't lie like that. His tone hardened, accusing me of tearing us apart. I ended the call and blocked him too. Cutting ties wasn't simple, but it was necessary. Diane, however, reached out differently. She suggested therapy, admitting her part in enabling Bethany's deception. We met a counselor in a quiet downtown office, sitting across from each other in soft chairs. Diane spoke first, voice trembling. I saw what I wanted, a daughter who needed approval. I hurt you. I listened, heavy-hearted but guarded. I appreciate that, Diane, but I need space. We continued sessions, but I kept boundaries firm, meeting her only when ready. I found purpose elsewhere. Leslie connected me with a local nonprofit combating medical fraud. They invited me to speak about how I uncovered Bethany's scheme. At the podium, I outlined the warning signs: inconsistent medical files, unverifiable labs, and fundraisers with missing receipts. The audience asked questions: how to recognize deceit, how to confront loved ones. I answered honestly. Trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, verify it. My confidence grew with each talk. I wasn't a victim anymore. I was someone who had fought back. The nonprofit offered more speaking engagements, and I accepted them. At libraries, schools, and community halls across Oregon, I taught people how to detect scams, cross-checking paperwork, contacting charities directly, trusting reason over blind loyalty. Each event felt like reclaiming another part of myself. I moved to a new apartment overlooking the Willamette River closer to downtown. It was mine, bought with my own earnings, a symbol of freedom. Leslie often visited, bringing coffee and her dry humor. "You're fearless now," she teased one evening, sipping espresso. I laughed, lighter than I'd felt in years. Thomas checked in periodically, ensuring no lawsuits from donors remained. "Bethany's legally clear, but her reputation's finished," he said. I nodded, unsurprised. The charities had recovered their funds, and Edward's article, still widely shared, kept her actions public. Martin, the agent, had distanced himself, his agency issuing a statement about ethical standards. Deborah, the fact-checker, sent me a brief email. "Your integrity stopped a lie from spreading." I saved it as a quiet reminder of what I'd reclaimed. Diane and I met less often as months passed. Therapy helped her recognize her patterns, her urge to fix, her blind loyalty to Bethany. She tried rebuilding our connection, bringing old photos or homemade meals. I valued her effort, but the closeness we once had was gone. "I'm finding my own way," I told her in one session. She nodded, eyes glistening. Richard never reached out again. His silence became its own decision. The family I'd known was fractured, but I wasn't broken. Speaking became my anchor. At a library event in Salem, a woman approached me. Her brother had faked a diagnosis for sympathy and money. I listened, offering the same advice I'd learned: verify everything, set limits, protect your truth. Each conversation strengthened me. I wasn't just surviving, I was helping others avoid what I had endured. My story gained traction, and a local news outlet interviewed me, calling it a lesson in trust and deception. I didn't shy away, speaking plainly about the price of family betrayal. Looking back, I realized my instincts had been right from the start. That first call from the fake lab, Bethany's tears, the records she demanded, they all felt wrong, but I had believed her. Never again. If something feels off now, I dig deeper, no matter who's involved. That's my lesson for anyone listening. Trust your gut, especially with those closest to you. Family can blind you, but it doesn't have to break you. Question, verify, protect yourself. I've rebuilt my life on those truths, and I'm stronger for it. What about you? Have you ever had to doubt someone you love? Share your story. I'm listening.